back, everyone, for the Process Mining Café. Today's Process Mining Café is about process improvement in production environments, and we have just seen in a very nice example how you can use process mining in this industry, which great results you can have. And here today, I'm again joined by Klaus and Minh Chau from the previous presentation at Camp, but I'm also joined. I'm very happy to have you here, Joris Keizers, who is Director of Lean at Weco Precision. Hello, Joris.
Hello, Anne. Thank you. Glad to be back at Process Mining Camp.
Exactly, because you were already also presenting your story, sharing your experience at Process Mining Camp a few years back. We can share the link in the camp community later.
Yeah.
Where also actually maybe we ended the discussion with Klaus and Minh Chau of me asking, like, how do you know when you're hitting a plateau that there is still room for improvement, right? And that was a little bit the story that you told back then, where you had a certain plateau reached, already great achievements were made, but you had the ambition to cut down the throughput time of the process further, and then actually you brought it still down from 4 weeks throughput time to 2 weeks with process mining, basically.
Yeah.
So welcome all of you three here for the discussion around the Process Mining Café. And in the community, please add your questions also there, and we will try to pick them up and incorporate them in the discussion. So maybe a first question from my side to Joris would be, Joris, when you're looking at the classical kind of lean improvement methods, you're usually physically visiting the production lines and inspecting the process. Now with process mining, you're quite far away from the process, looking at the data. How big of a problem is this?
Let's say the closer you get to the production data, the more effective is process mining. It's not that it's not working when you're working too far from the work floor, but it will take you too much energy and will not be very efficient and effective. That's what I've learned over the past years to make sure that you, in case you make a very close combination, just the people on the work floor and the people who are doing the analysis, the effects are way beyond what you expected. Way beyond what you expected.
What do you mean with getting the people close? Do you mean like they are in the same team?
I think you can use process mining in two phases. In the first phase, process mining helps you to identify which areas of the process needs attention for improvement. And at that time, you have to step in to the GEMBA, incorporate the people on the work floor in your team, and make sure that they are part of the analysis, but also part of the solution. That will give you a lot of traction when you want to implement the improvements.
Okay.
We learned that by including more people, you can achieve more successes in the same time.
By looking at the same process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little bit reminds me of what both of you have presented, just with that you involve the people who have the domain knowledge working closely in the production process, right? Is this what you meant there too?
Joris, a question from my side. It's interesting for me, and it's always a little bit challenge, and I adjusted project by project. The amount of people and which time and which responsibility from the supervisors as a resource has to be given. The resource has to be motivated, and the right amount of the participants of a project. This is one of the success. It's dependent also from the culture side. Such Chinese colleagues or the United States are different in working to the project. And is it your experience too?
Yes, I think at some point of time we decided that all the operators should spend, let's say, half a day not on their production activities, but on improvement activities. And so we make sure that they get the time to work on the improvements. And once you go to the operators and you tell them, hey, I'm going to help you to make your work nicer and to give you influence on what you're doing, our experience is that the vast majority takes that challenge and works with you to achieve very nice results and to be part of the results, so that they don't have the idea that they are only working at your company, but they are also contributing to improving your company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, very interesting. Yes, of course. And where is the right place to implement process mining? Process mining, I'm not familiar. I was not familiar in the past. But suddenly the possibility give me additional view of transparency. But I'm always a little bit not sure on which time is it the right point to improve with process mining to give process mining or get informations by process mining.
Yeah, I was very impressed by your presentation, not only by the results, but also the size of your company. We're talking about completely different sizes of company. In our company, we're working at one location, but let's say 200 people. So it's way smaller. And it's not that we have a department of process mining, but there are some people in our company who have the skills and abilities to work with it. We make sure that they are part of the implementation and improvement teams.
Yes.
But what I see, I don't know how it's at your company, but what I see at other companies, that companies struggle with making sure that they make the combination between the process mining skills and there where you want to have the improvements. Let's say the shop floor or the responsibility of the business.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maybe one thing that fits in here is I was just before this discussion, I was looking up what again are the 7 or 8 wastes that you with lean that you analyze and try to eliminate, and the difference between the 7 and 8 waste. So is that the 8th waste is the skills and expertise of the people, right?
Yeah, and
so you should not waste it.
That's exactly what we've learned by making sure that we also use the skills that we traditionally did not use, but people actually have. You can achieve way more results.
Yeah.
And how have you organized process mining in your company then, Klaus?
Organized is it's not the right way. It's a process is try and error. It's not a very complicated tool. The interface, for example, you use Excel and you have the possibility to compress and combine all the data in such kind of interface. And me especially, I prefer such interim tool, not the tools which are located in a very huge and the company overall procedure. Only questionnaires on detail areas. This is my preferred way to improve it.
And the good thing that I see at Wacker is, so the common thing is we have productivity management as a central department, but also in each of the 4 business divisions that we have seen. And that was actually, I think, by no chance that their process mining was discovered. So that's where I started as a master student. So my mentor was also someone from productivity management, and there is the idea of getting new technologies, getting new ways to improve, because we got to that plateau in production. And then he was looking for new ways, and that's how he met Anne. So I think that's something which is in our DNA, this improvement. So there we have the skill maybe also to use this process mining, but also the knowledge of the shop floor. And that's actually a really good combination. So productivity management at Wacker is focused on the shop floor, not on the administrative processes.
Yeah, but I indeed still see it as a big challenge for the process mining community, that everybody knows Six Sigma, everybody knows Lean, but still hardly people knows process mining.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
No, maybe one thing you need is data, right? I mean, you do need also data for Lean analysis, but usually you measure it yourself, maybe by observing, sometimes maybe from the IT systems. But yeah, getting the data from the IT systems for process mining, how difficult was that for you?
In my case, it was quite easy, because when I first saw process mining, I immediately placed a link between the tool and the data that we're using, and I thought, well, this could be a great tool for all the data which is stored somewhere in the basements of our databases, but very powerful to improvement. But indeed, I see a lot of companies struggling to start with process mining because they don't have the data. And then it's a little bit the chicken and the egg problem. What's first?
Yes. Minh Chau, you have some experiences and troubles with the data collection. Can you explain it a little bit? It was interesting, but I think it's symptomatic for a lot of first approaches to process mining. Yeah.
So back in 2017, there was the difficulty that I was new in that company. I was not established. Of course, my mentor had a network, so that helped a lot, this good network, to get an understanding of the process. And then you get closer to where is the data laying. But as we got to know in the beginning, our company is quite big. So the IT department is not only 1 or 10 persons. Those are really a lot of persons, and there's lots of teams again. So that was quite a struggle to get the right person first, in the first step. And then I chose an order-to-cash process, which is kind of a big scope. So many departments are involved. So the sales department, then production, logistics. So that's really a big process step. And then you need to get the permission of all the data owners to analyze that data. So it was really a hurdle. Luckily, I could manage that, but I wouldn't recommend to take such a big process in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for me it was a little bit easier because I was responsible approximately 10 to 15 years in the manufacturing execution area. Though I'm a electrical engineer, and I'm very familiar with each kind of data collection, and though it's make it much more easier to get the first approach to touch the data, and then the tool itself, it's very easy to use, and you have to get an overview, and this took for me approximately 2 or 3 weeks, and though step by step I go in the first approach of looking for the benefits.
Yeah, but you have been working with data before, right, Klaus? Just with other tools, not process mining, but more kind of Excel statistical tools like Minitab and so on. So Yeah, so I'm because that's also one aspect I'm curious about. On Monday, when we kicked off the process mining camp with the keynote, we were looking at the different methodologies that people use around their process mining project, because you need some kind of methodology around it, right, to do something with those insights and take actions. And so one interesting aspect there is how you can just fit process mining into this existing methodology, or whether you maybe have to tune it, fine-tune it, twist it, change it a little bit. And so one aspect here with the data analysis with process mining is, exactly. So that's why I was asking about the data, because my impression from many lean practitioners is that they maybe didn't even trust the data in the IT system, that it wasn't reliable or something. They only trusted the data that they themselves had done a good data measurement analysis on it, or how the kind of validation. Would you agree, or is it common or not? Let's say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, because now I started digging deeper into another process which is related to production, and there, I had the chance that the data is really locked in one production system, but not in the right way. And actually, the timestamps, they are correct, but it depends on how you define which timestamp you want to have. So it's really those really small process steps which are captured in that process system, but it's actually not the timestamp that we want to have. And that's why we think, okay, it's reliable, but it's a different different truth. And that's the key, where you need the domain expert, where you have to really check the data again.
And if I may ask you, Minh Chau, how do you make sure that people are involved in making sure that the data is correct in your database? You can involve the people in doing the analysis, but in what way are your colleagues involved in making sure that you store the right data?
So I picked a colleague who's really who had installed this new batch system, which is recording the timestamps, and that's why he knows quite exactly which timestamps are locked and what is meant by that. And with this really close collaboration, I look with him into process mining. I explain him what's the methodology behind that, what we see there. And then he looks at the process map, and we validated them together. And then he sees, okay, actually this process step is not logical. Step 1, and then comes step 3. Actually, there should be step 2. And then that's how we slowly validate then the log. And step by step then.
Yes. This is really a very important point, Joris. You have to keep in your mind, and you have to double check all the data. And the double checking for me is collect. For example, there's a expectation from my side, and I have to summarize in the simplest way, summarize the timestamps. And if in the end of the calculations the day has approximately 27 hours, you have to look on the data again. And this, you need the experiences, and you need a human understanding, a simple human understanding of the data and the process. And if this combination is given, you are able to be critical and look for the adjustment of the basic data.
Yeah. So again, the domain knowledge is really important, also for the data validation, right? To be able to judge whether it makes sense or not. And it seems like the closer the process, the digital world comes to the process, right? For example, if the process is really driven through the system, then the data will be quite good, because then people, the data is collected in the moment that people are actually performing those steps. But if you're just writing down things afterwards, you get this kind of manual error and delay, and immediately it's less trustworthy.
Yeah, what just came to my mind is it's difficult to really know when you have erased all the data quality problems. It's always try and error, but sometimes I wasn't really sure whether I deleted all the errors.
Yeah, that's a good question. When can you be sure that you saw everything, right? Maybe some of the statistical approaches from the lean world can help us there also in the post-mining space, right? Once, Joris, even you did a workshop also a few years ago already at the post-mining camp where you were basically teaching the process miners some of the classical Lean Six Sigma contexts, methods in the context of data validation, where if you measure the same thing 3 times, you should have 3 times the same result, right? And so if you measure something with kind of a rough measuring device, you will have some variation, but you will get a sense of how much variation is there, so you can take that into account. So it's like when, and that's maybe sometimes all you can get, right? If, for example, in a hospital, the doctor is not immediately registering the steps that they're taking in a medical process when they happen, but at the end of the day, the logging happens, the taking notes of what was done, then the time doesn't mean anything, but you can look at the dates, right? So then only on the date level.
You're talking about a very important point. One of the big pitfalls in process mining, and if you can find data, is that if you find data in the end somewhere that you are so happy with it that you forget to be very critical about the quality of the data, and you just start working with it. Yeah. Because you're so happy you can actually start with the next phase of your process. Yeah. That is really a big pitfall in process mining.
And it's really dangerous, because then if you present something based on that to people who are already maybe not trusting the data, and then there's problems with it, you can fix the problem and come back with improved analysis, but they don't want to see it anymore. They don't believe you. So you have this one shot.
Yeah, you have only one shot to make sure that you can present your results, and they believe it and are on board to work with you on improvements. That's true.
Yeah.
Did that happen to you then, Joris, that you were just too excited about getting the data and then you forgot the validation?
You shouldn't ask that question, Minh Chau. Sometimes I'm a little bit too eager to go to the next phase that even I forget to really check some things. Yeah.
It's really good to keep in mind.
Yeah, so that's another important topic. It's also to make sure that you have people around you who are also aware of these pitfalls, who can challenge you on it. If you don't have the people in your working environment who can challenge you on data quality and so on, you might make some small slips, which will lead to wrong conclusions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the data is really like this one key point, and maybe looking at how process mining changes the methodology around it, which is usually like Lean or Lean Six Sigma in this space. So one thing I thought I could maybe ask you as a kind of a thesis statement is I came across kind of a statement or like a thesis on a blog article somewhere where someone said that with process mining you can actually discover new types of wastes, right? So that's why I was looking up the different methods of or the types of wastes, and the classical ones are, I just list them for the people who are watching who maybe don't have them at the top of their mind. It's like the first one is transport, the second inventory, the third motion, the fourth is waiting, the fifth is overprocessing, and the sixth one overproduction, and the seventh is defects. So these are kind of things you try to eliminate and avoid. And what they're saying is that, well, maybe it's not really new, but that process mining makes it possible to actually address those potentials that couldn't be analyzed in this way before. Ways, for example, to look at non-compliance of processes or cancellations of orders, fallout of processes, extra work to meet deadlines, penalties or discounts for delivering too late, extra expedition shipping costs, rush subcontracting. So more kind of things around the ordering maybe, and the purchasing, and the kind of the maybe more digital administrative processes around the actual production process. Do you think there's something to that, or?
My experience in this point is it's similar to the OEE, for example.
What is OEE?
OEE is overall equipment efficiency, and this is a standard key performance indicator to indicate which kind of losses you have, divided normally in 3 parts: the losses from the technician side, from the technology side, from the quality, and the last loss element is production and logistics. And in the end, that means from the 24 hours per day, we use approximately only 70% of the time for really value-adding production side. All other things are losses, and we look for the losses. And process mining has the same approach. That means in the beginning, and the main raws of process mining is time. You need the time space from beginning to the end, and the additional attributes what you can connect to this time phases are, for example, the outputs or other physical things. But in the beginning, you have always a time delay from past. The activity took time, the past took time, and that you can see bypassed by the mainstream, where as a wastes and then you have to stick a little bit deeper in the process and look for other physical things like quality or volume or so on.
Yeah.
We once did a project which was presented a few years ago by a former colleague of mine, Mick Langeberg, also on process mining, where we looked at the total engineering and production time of a sample.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we were able to combine a database of engineering information and of production information. That was quite interesting, because then you saw the engineering process and afterwards the production process of the sample. And
Great.
Then you got really new insights in what actually makes sure that ensures that a product does not meet the customer criteria or is too late or whatever. For example, we found out that the production department is very much focused on production in terms of efficiency, making not too much costs and produce cheap parts. But in the sample process, where you want to deliver only one product to a new customer, it's not so much about efficiency, but it's way more about timing. It's not very. It doesn't matter if it's more expensive than a final industrial solution, but you just have to make sure that you are on the desk of your customer very quickly. And we found those times of conflicts, we found out during that project.
It's a nice project.
It's a really nice example. Actually, we can also, in the camp community, we will link that presentation, because Mick also gave a presentation, and in a way he phrased it like they were discovering a new process, not that it didn't exist before, but that people didn't think of this part of the kind of the pre-production, right? The development as a separate process.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, and then I think that was also a challenge to get the data right from
exactly. Yeah.
No problem for Joris.
No, it was not done by me. This was done by Mick, but I think he did a great job in, for example, finding timestamps in email databases to find information sharing between our company and our customers.
Yeah. It's really a data interpreter. It's an expert of interpretation of all sources, especially emails. Yes.
Yeah, and it shows again that you can find processes everywhere and apply process mining, right? Sometimes
exactly.
Become creative in finding the data in this way. Maybe one question from the community that we can pick up here is, let me see. Franz was asking, like when you were talking also in your presentation earlier, but in general in the approach when we are looking at the demaic phases, right? So the define phase, it's important to know which questions you want to answer. That's also what I think both of you have discussed before. So you need to know what you want to analyze. How important is it to already know also what kind of expectation for improvement you have in relation to this question?
It's very helpful. It's not really necessary because it depends on the order, on the task what we have to reach. But I prefer, not only prefer, I look for my own expectations, discuss with the responsible departments which can give me what should be the output, for example, and we have such kind of expectations. It's the basic of the target. It's the basic of the goal of each of the responsible guys. And though we look for deficiencies between these set points and the real data. Yes, it's necessary. For me, it's necessary, but not in general. You can look for what is possible, what will be happen. Yes.
Yeah, I agree to Klaus. So sometimes it's good to have this question because you know your key performance indicator that you're always looking for. But in my case, for example, when I now analyze the batch system records, I didn't really have a concrete question because we didn't know yet what you can expect from this process mining analysis. So that was just a guess. Okay, we can improve the time. Maybe we can look whether the process steps are done in the correct order for every batch. But yeah, it was just a slight guess. And then process mining showed us, okay, yeah, we can improve the timing, for example. So. But it's not very necessary to start with a concrete question.
Yeah, maybe that's also a little bit of the power of process mining, that you have both types of analysis. You have this explorative analysis where you can, maybe without, or basically also discover answers to questions that you maybe wouldn't even have asked or had thought about asking because you see something or discover something. And that's especially also again with the subject matter experts or domain experts who know the process very well, right? I have heard many stories from people who maybe themselves were starting to look into process mining, but then showed a process map to someone else who really knows the process, and they immediately point at something and say, well, that can't be true, or something is going wrong here. And then, it wasn't a specific question, but you can still get something out.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you show the domain expert the real process, they think, it's like a mirror that you're showing them into the face how they are working or how the process is working. And it's really interesting just that they look into the mirror and see, yeah, that's right. That's this forwarder who always causes the problems for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, maybe now that we're talking about the method also, and how does it change, I'm curious. I mean, value stream mapping is the classical method that's used in the Lean Six Sigma space. Process mining is often a little bit described to Lean Six Sigma people as, it's kind of it draws a value stream map for you, right? So, do you still need value stream mapping if you have process mining?
For me, yes.
Why?
I need a baseline. I need a baseline and understanding from the whole process. Those are the vertical and the horizontal dimensions. Vertical means the information flow, and the horizontal flow it's the step-by-step flow. Normally, it's physically, and storage and inventory and all these things are part of the results. If you have not the understanding of the process and the work step analysis helps me. It's a very common, it's an old-fashioned tool, and I made it in different ways from the manual scratch to the Visio-based Scratch, and this is a basic for process mining, and this is also basic for process simulation. Process simulation has the same starting point. Process mining goes to the past data. Process simulation is the next step to look for our approaches, our improvements. How did it work? The expectations get more basics by process simulation. And in between, and all this tool are necessary and very helpful for get an overview. Yes.
Do you also still make value streams, Joris?
Yeah, of course, because of course, process mining is very powerful, but the value of people being part of describing the process makes sure that they also feel part of the problem and also want to be part of the solution. And also, even if you have a lot of data, in reality, the real process is always way more richer than the data in your system, especially in our production environment, at least. Mm-hmm. Also, because there is still a lot of operator dependency, which is not visible in the process mining outcomes. So I think it's great if you can combine both worlds.
Yeah, okay, so that means not every single step you have recorded in the data system. It's operator 1 does it a bit differently than operator 2.
And exactly, because if you once have created a brown paper with a value stream map on the wall, you can also use process mining to see the performance of part of the process, because that's not possible by making brown papers and value stream maps. Therefore, you need tools like process mining. But if you do it in that way, then people are already involved in the process and also involved in the solution finding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so all of these tools are used together, right? So that's process mining doesn't replace anything, but it's a new tool in the toolbox, and it complements the other things that are already there.
I always say I never do process mining projects. I always do improvement projects, and some improvement projects are based on process mining.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Maybe one last question before we close. I'm curious, Joris, you were one of the early adopters in process mining, and specifically looking at the manufacturing space. So how have you seen the development over the past maybe 5 years or so? Do you see more and more companies also doing that, or are interested in that, or is something holding them back? What's your impression of the state of adoption, let's say?
I see it more and more as a normal tool. And we started with it as being a small company. We also had some big companies visiting our companies to see how we are using process mining. And also, it's nice to see that also the large companies are struggling with how to find my data and so on. So that you're not the only one. So mostly based on those visits, I see that exactly that also other manufacturing companies are more and more adopting this tool.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks a lot to all three of you for this very interesting discussion. I enjoyed it a lot. And so what I would suggest is that there are still a few questions also in the community, also some specifically about your talk, Klaus and Minh Chau, and some more in general. So I would suggest let's all continue the discussion over there in the camp community on Slack, and close the session here for today. And we will be back tomorrow at the same time with another practice talk and another Process Mining Café. So I hope I see you all back again here in the same place. Thank you, Minh Chau. Thank you, Klaus. Thanks, Joris. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you a lot.
Bye.
Really nice.
Bye.